Atheists and the Omaha Atheists, the Omaha Humanists, Omaha Coalition of Reason, and the Omaha Group are all represented here today to put our display up called Reason this season. It talks about using reason at this time of the year as far as how we approach the world. We want to talk about things like separation of church and state, and that's really what Lincoln Atheists is here to talk about. In that vein, we've asked Senator Ernie Chambers to speak a little bit about separation of church and state, so I'm going to turn it over to him and let him speak for a little bit.
Thank you. I appreciate these opportunities. The reason I do is because there are certain principles that are very important, and to me the most, when I say the most, I don't mean to the exclusion of everything else, but the most important one that is discussed often and most misunderstood and misapplied is the notion of separation of church and state. I believe it should not be a separation. It should be a wall. It should be a gulf. It should be a moat in which are alligators, crocodiles, and prehistoric creatures whose sight alone kept people at bay. Religious people don't have to impose themselves, intrude every place. They claim to believe in a God who is all-powerful and everywhere. And when I was a small boy, a lad, I read the Bible constantly looking for answers, and the first answer I found was that things people told me in church were not even in the Bible. The things that were there were not complied with by the people in the church. They like to use the threat of hell to scare children into doing what they wanted, but as a child, using a child's mind, if the grown people are not afraid of hell, and the idea of hell is not enough to make them treat children right, there must not be any hell, and they don't tell the truth. So I developed an attitude of being very distrustful, mistrustful of anything any adult told me, and would hold my final opinion at bay until I could arrive at a conclusion, because I had to live according to what I thought and what I believed. Let me tell you why I've never accepted the term atheist for myself. I don't accept any labels. Not atheist, not Christian, not non-believer, not agnostic, and I'll tell you why. In a society like America, where people think in cliches and they speak in slogans, they need a label for everything to short-circuit the need to think. And once you accept a label, you are accepting all of the baggage that that label carries. You're not allowed to define yourself. When you take the label, you don't define it. And I will not be defined in contradistinction to somebody else. I don't think enough of any religion, anything supernatural, anything magical to have myself defined in terms of not this, not that, not the other, because the only way I can be adequately defined, if I'm letting other people do it, is to pick everything in the universe with which I disagree and say I'm not that. So my definition of myself is that I am what I am, and that's all what I am. And in the interest of total transparency, I did steal that from the greatest philosopher / thinker America ever produced, which is Popeye the Sailor Man. And throughout all the generations that he has existed, that has remained his watchword. And a thing can only be what it is. So I leave myself free to do, believe, and act in accord with what my best judgment, my best understanding tells me to do. But I don't believe in magic. I like to watch magicians. They almost are so good it makes me feel that if there were a devil, they probably sold their soul to the devil in exchange for the power to do what is called magic. But ghosts, goblins, demons, angels, none of that means anything to me. As a child, some of them put me in terror. When I was a child, I thought as a child. When I became a man, I put away childish things. Children and nobody else should be coerced into behaving a certain way or tricked into believing a certain way based on fear. Knowledge, understanding, wisdom are the things that can sustain a person and a society and can generate and produce those institutions, if there are to be any, which can not only stand now, but they can withstand withering, searching, analysis, and examination. Because once you let go of the supernatural, on which you can fall back when everything else fails, you don't have to really be responsible. Just have the right magical incantation and things will happen. When you don't have that, you've got to rely on your mind. You want other people to do the same thing. And if they can show a cogent, reasonable objection based on reason that what you are holding to is not true, and you become convinced that what you hold to is an error, there is nothing to be gained if you're honest with yourself and holding to something that you know is erroneous. When people bring me something that will cause me to change my mind, I'm not offended. My stock phraseology is, thank you for improving my education. I want to continue to learn as long as I live. And the only way that can happen is to be exposed to new, unthought of, or unsettled things as far as I'm concerned. So, if I were to say that anybody who doesn't believe in Judaism, Christianity, or Islam is a pagan, a heathen, an atheist, or whatever, then if I hold to the pantheon of Greek and Roman gods, if you don't believe in them, you are an atheist many times over. And you know that's not going to be accepted in a society like this. I think if religion would stay in its temple, where they will never be bothered with or by somebody like me, allow the state to remain in the corridors of buildings such as state houses. Each can go its own way and not be eternally at war with each other. The war takes so much time and so much energy that the principles that either side really holds to may be lost in the dust. As says an old African proverb, when the elephants fight, the grass suffers. So, I cannot tell anybody what to do. I cannot tell anybody what to think or believe. I can give my beliefs if they're interested, tell them why I believe if they're interested, but I also tell them this. Sometimes, you know, people are persuaded when a person has facility and fluency with language. If there's something that carries you from morning to night, through the night until the next day, if it makes your boat float, don't let me or anybody else take it from you, because I don't have anything to give you other than what I believe. It works for me, it may not work for you. So, if everybody would mind their own business, tend to what's in their yard, don't worry about what's in other people's yard, you will not be in the position of the Puritans, for whom hell was being placed in a position where they had to mind their own business and leave other people alone. And because I was introduced with the admonition that I would speak a little, for some people what I've said is lengthy, but for me it is a little. I come down here every day just about, in session and out of session, because I take very seriously the work that I do. Many people don't agree with it, but I'm not doing it for them. I'm doing it to vindicate my own existence, my own beliefs, the promise that I made when I took this office. So coming down here today allowed me to join you all in what you're doing. And I'm very pleased that you're doing it, and I hope you let nothing deter you. But there are other things that I must do. Having promised to be here, the promise being made must be kept. I feel that I've kept my promise. Now I have to keep the promise to myself and go do some of the work that I'm not paid well for, but I am paid. So if you all will now excuse me, I'm going to take my leave.
Again, thank you everybody for coming out. I do encourage you to look at all of the displays to see what we have to show and what we're talking about here. We do have our table here. We're asking atheists. This is a great chance to talk to some of us that are here today about why we're here and what we believe about separation of church and state. Thank you. My name's Brian Aiden.
Brian and
B-R-I-A-N.
And how you spell it?
A-D-E-N.
And can you tell what do you think about this year sharing the space?
I think it's a good thing, actually. I think that it actually makes our message a little bit easier to talk about because we can actually say that if the state is allowing a religious display, that at the same time they have to allow non-religious displays like ours to be in the Capitol.
Is there still a little bit of equity? I mean, you have a Christmas tree above the floor.
I personally see Christmas trees as a secular decoration at this point, so I have one in my house, so I'm not opposed to Christmas trees. But it's not really about the Christmas tree. It's about allowing religious organizations to come in and display very religious icons as part of the display. So.
Did you feel crowded, or one of the things that they had said before, you had said before, was that you needed the entire area?
So last year we did fill up the whole space because that's what we had room for. We kind of condensed everything down this year to fit it where we had available. It was just what was available when we put our request in. I personally choose that label very strongly for myself. I am the founder of Lincoln Atheist, and I chose that name very carefully when I originally decided, because I believe that there's a stigma attached to being an atheist in this country. And one of the things that I believe that I want to see happen is that I want to remove that stigma that's attached to the label. Too often we allow others to define us. We have labels such as that, so I'm trying to redefine it and let people know that atheists are good people.
And when did you find out that you were going to have to share the space?
When we put our application in back in, was it July? Well, originally February actually, so we put the application in for a space. So we found out back then.
At that particular time?
Yeah.
Did you know that might happen? Or?
We actually knew that was a distinct possibility because we knew there was 4 spaces available, and we requested as many as we could get, but we were only allowed 2 because that's all that's available.
With separation of church and state, do you believe that there should be a nativity scene in the Capitol?
I don't believe there should be a nativity scene in the Capitol because it is a very religious imagery, and it seems that the state is actually supporting religion over non-religion at that case, and it's a very specific religion as well. But because the Capitol has rules that allow anybody to actually display on a first-come, first-served basis, as long as we are allowed to place our displays at the same time, it is equitable for everybody.
Is there a time that you have to apply, when you can apply for, and when does this become like a race for the space?
It's 6 months, I think, is what we're now told that before we can have the space. So, which changed. Last year we put in August, but this year we put in as early. We started in February, but the application wasn't accepted until June. I think it was.
Did you try to reserve the entire space again this year?
Yeah, we did. We did ask for all, but it had been already claimed, so at least part of it.
Did you know that it was an earlier reservation date, or did that come as a surprise?
Yeah.
To put in the request this year, so we honored that and waited until February. At that point, we realized that 2 other groups had already made reservations.
That's good. Chris did a lot of the work for the application process.
I am Chris Clements. I am kind of the organizer, getting everything together. So last year, at the end of the year, I talked with the Capitol Commission. They requested that we waited until February to put in our request. So we honored that. In February, when we put in our request, they said that 2 other groups had already reserved 2 of the corners. So we could get 2 corners, which we were very happy to be able to get that. They also informed us that there was a new rule that was put in place after our display last year that you had to do 6 months in advance and no more than that. So we decided to also reapply in July in order to make sure that we were following all the rules.
And I guess, is there a concern that this does become a race for this space and all of a sudden you will eventually could get crowded out?
It could happen. I don't know that I'm all that concerned about it. There would have to be a lot of groups, and I am pretty good at being up at midnight in order to submit things immediately when I'm able to. And I've got some great people that have helped remind me to be up and do that. If we get beat out, we get beat out. That's just part of the way the game is played. We'll try again
We're
next year.
definitely not trying to keep other people out of here. That was never our intent last year or this year. It's to get our message out. And so we would like to use this time of year, but if it became a race to the finish to see who was going to get the space, we would be as willing to do it another time of the year if necessary.
But you guys did get here early and set up in the nicest spots.
No,
They were assigned to us.
Oh, they
we
were
were
assigned.
assigned these spots. This was not our choice.
Oh, really? Okay.
Were you assigned times to set up?
Yeah, they told us we could come in yesterday to do the setup so that it was ready to go today.
Can you spell your name?
CHRISCLEMENTS.
And you're identifying yourself as the organizer?
It's sponsored by Lincoln Atheists and Omaha Atheists. I have just been the one that has taken the reins on getting the application submitted and organizing the different groups together. But it is Lincoln Atheists putting on the display. Yes, and I am a member of the Lincoln Atheist Education. And we put this up as an educational display. Thomas More puts their nativity scene up as an art display. Personally, I would like to see some better art. It would be great to see a great nativity scene, but theirs looks like some store-bought lawn ornaments put into a box. The actual stable is very nice. It's handmade, and they've done a good job on that. I just wish they would show a little more care about what they put together.
Does it bother you that they're right across from each other? Does that make it seem like it's a little bit of a competition? Do you wish they were in different places of the building?
I don't personally have a problem with it being right across from us.
This is where the displays are.
This is where it is, yeah. So no problem with that. Any other questions? Thank you. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
I knew you know all the details of the application.